Hag Sameach. Shabbat Shalom. So I was wondering what I was going to talk about in the middle of Pesach. We've already had 2 Pesach sermons. We've had introduction to Pesach sermons on Shabbat HaGadol. We get 2 more on Monday and Tuesday. It seems to be never ending, especially with all the matzah. And actually, that's what led to, where I ended up this week. I was looking at Facebook, as probably most of us do occasionally. I think only Rick is smart enough to have a Facebook desert. Dove too, and we have a whole bunch. It's a really good idea. Maybe that was our freedom from Facebook. That's the true freedom on Pesach. But I was looking at a meme, as we do, and this was a sort of a silly one, but it said, this is the time of year where we spend so much time cleaning our kitchens, and then we eat the most crumbly food possible. So I was thinking about that, and that's what led to whatever comes out today. How many days, by the way, is it till Shavuot? 46. Well, maybe. Anybody else have another answer? Well, if you read the Torah, how many days is it till Shavuot? 50. Because in the Torah it says, from the Shabbat you count, and then. It's only the rabbis in the Talmud who said, the Shabbat really means the second day of Pesach. The Samaritans and the Karaites have 50 days till Pesach. We only have 46. But I'm going to stick with the 46. If it was good enough for our ancient rabbis, it's good enough for me. But it's good enough for the Hebrew children? What was that from? Good enough for the Hebrew children? There's some song like that. I can't remember words. Thank you. I knew somebody would remember the song, so it's good enough for us. So we have 46 days till Shavuot. And it really is a pilgrimage from here to Sinai. But of course, and this is where the matzah comes in, we don't actually have to worry about getting lost. Because you know what we can do? We can make a trail from our way back so that we can just follow the breadcrumbs back in case we get lost. And of course, each breadcrumb represents the day of the Omer. Yet I noticed that Rabbi Roller came up with a much better idea for counting the Omer than breadcrumbs of matzah. And they're making Omer counters tomorrow at the wonderful chocolate Seder with chocolate. And what could be better? I was thinking, and I don't know if this makes sense, but on the first day of the Omer, 1 piece of chocolate. On the 49th day of the Omer, think about chocolate. You can spend chocolate all day.
It makes Halloween seem nothing.
Exactly. This is the real Jewish Halloween. But we do have our way back. We do have our crumbs. And it's a personal journey of crumbs rather than, and of course, chocolate's a very personal thing too. So it gives us this journey that we all are following. And I was thinking about that as well as Ben, Kristen, Iris, and Harry, and I think I may have missed somebody, and Michael were chanting from Shir HaShirim this morning, because Shir HaShirim is a beautiful poem, but ultimately it becomes a love story. And it's seen as a love story between God and Israel, but in a sense, the rabbis tell us it also can be a love story between each of us representing Israel and God. It's a metaphor for a journey of lovers coming together, which is beautiful if we're human beings, and it's beautiful if we think about it being our souls reaching towards God. And for me, that is the meaning of a very difficult set of rituals connected with the Omer, as we count off the days between Pesach and Shavuot. That, of course, makes total sense because you do need to get ready to receive the Torah. We have to think about and understand what it means to be free. And in Judaism, freedom is not just another word for nothing left to lose. Sorry. But it means a lot more. And so we need to be concentrating and thinking about that. So that makes sense. But then, you're not allowed to shave. You're not allowed to wear new clothes. You're not allowed to listen to live music. You know, there's so many knots that you're not supposed to do during the Omer. And it just makes it really a depressing period. Though, of course, when we get to the 33rd day of the Omer, Lag BaOmer, then we get to celebrate and let loose. And by that time, we really need to. You should see the lines in Jerusalem of people getting haircuts on Lag BaOmer. It's crazy. But then, of course, they have bonfires, which I never quite understood, and they shoot bows and arrows, which also don't make much sense. But, although I like the bows and arrows because it says that that's the direction to go, that's the way of the halakha. And of course, when we don't get the halakha right, we make mistakes, that's chet, which means sin, which comes actually from archery, missing the mark. So to some degree, that actually makes some nice metaphoric sense if you want to play with it a bit. But we have this journey, and I was thinking about it really as a spiritual journey, because we do have our ancestors, and they went through a spiritual journey from Egypt to Sinai, and we too need to go through spiritual journeys for our own personal Egypts to our own personal Sinais. That's what life is about. Life is a search. As we search for God, try to find God, and sometimes we go in the right direction, and sometimes we need to follow those chocolate pieces that we had back to eat, back, because we need to restart our steps as we retrace and try to find where the mistakes are that we've made. So it's a journey with ups and downs, and it's a journey not always with an end. When I was a kid, I grew up in a Reformed synagogue, and I remember at my bar mitzvah, that was the one that was the first bar mitzvah, they turned to the new prayer book. We were really upset because the amount of Hebrew you had to do for a bar mitzvah from the new Gates of Prayer was amazing compared to the amount you had to do from the old Union prayer book. It was really like night and day. So we had about 3 times as much Hebrew to do as the kid who had the bar mitzvah the week before. But we were the first. But I remember a reading that was in there that struck me at my bar mitzvah and still strikes me today. It says, life is a search, life is a journey, life is a time following breadcrumbs towards God, and it's a game of hide and seek, as well as finding breadcrumbs. God hides, we seek. But then, at the end of the paragraph, the author said, if finding means the end of searching, then it would be better to keep on searching. And of course, I've always thought that if we think we find God, then we've probably found an idol that we've created ourselves. Because God is always beyond the next corner. God is always hidden, like the Afikomen, and we need to keep looking and trying to find that God. Find God, find that image that works and helps us as we move our lives spiritually towards Sinai. So we're on this journey, and each of us begins in Egypt. Now, the word Egypt in Hebrew comes from the idea of a narrow place and an area with boundaries, and that makes very great sense. If you look at a map, it's not just a regular map, but a typographical map with all the greens and yellows of the desert and the fertile areas. Because if you look at Egypt, you'll see a small green area, which is the area right around the Nile, which is fertile. And in fact, it was the breadbasket of the Roman Empire. It was so fertile. But right next to it, on either side, are the Sahara Desert, where life is almost impossible. So the boundaries, that area of Egypt, is bounded in. And the rabbis see that as a metaphor for slavery, for being bounded in, being controlled, being forced to be in this narrow place, and that Sinai, moving towards freedom, is breaking out of those boundaries, breaking out of the limitations of Egypt, looking at our own lives and saying, what are the boundaries we have? What are the limitations we have? And how can we break forth from them and move off in our journey towards Sinai? And that's something that each of us need to find in our own hearts and in our own souls. What kind of journeys we can take? Where are the directions we need to go? What are the boundaries that we have? And I was thinking about my boundaries, and my boundaries are, I love beautiful things, especially I love every time I see something, especially something that's from an indigenous group or a native group or whatever, I want to buy it. So I fill my house with all sorts of material possessions, and then thinking about going on my journey, I wonder, does this make any sense? Does this allow me to actually find God? And I was reminded as I thought about everything that I have that I love, that I'm probably missing the mark in a journey towards breaking free from my boundaries. And I was reminded of a Hasidic story. The story talks about the great Maggid, and the great Maggid was visited by a Hasid, and the great Maggid lived in a very simple house, often Hasidic Rebbes did, where there was almost no furniture. And so the Hasid comes in, he sees that the great Maggid, there's only one simple wooden chair in the room and nothing else. And so he says to the great Maggid, wow, you have such a simple house with no furniture. I have a house full of furniture. It's beautiful. I'd like to share it with you. I'd like to give you a whole suite of furniture for your house. And the great Maggid turns to him and says, well, do you have your furniture with you today? And the man says, I come from Warsaw, coming to visit you, and all my furniture is back in Warsaw. Right now, I'm on a journey. And the great Maggid turned to him and said, I too am on a journey. And what he was telling his Hasid was we need to break free from the slavery we have to the material world around us. We need to break free from things that we value, but really are more of a form of idolatry, which is our possessions, our Apple products, or whatever. And we need to allow ourselves to find God without any of this slavery. Now, of course, everybody has their own personal slaveries. Everybody has their things that they place and they worship and they think are very important. Each of us is different. And it could be, Shelley would say my real slavery is books. When we moved from Japan, the most expensive thing that made the move hugely expensive was these 70 boxes of books. So she's probably right. But we all have our personal slaveries. We all have the things that tie us to this world and don't allow us to reach towards our personal Sinais. And so what we need to do as we go through these days of the Omer is think about what is it that prevents us from finding God? What is it that prevents us from reaching out spiritually? What is it that prevents us from journeying and finding that sense of freedom that will allow us true spiritual life? We need to go through those processes. And it's only if we do so, it's only if we actually wrestle with our souls and are truthful to ourselves that we can come to Sinai and be ready to receive the Torah. That's why we need these 50 days, whether it's 46 from last Tuesday night or 50 from today. It really doesn't matter. We need those days to prepare. We need to take the time to prepare. And sometimes we're going to need to follow those little drops of chocolate that we laid out. Sometimes we do need to follow the mass of matzah crumbs back and then start again. But if we don't make the journey, if we don't make the effort, we never can reach the goal. So as we count tonight and all through the Omer, let's also think about what are our personal slaveries? What are the things that we need to escape from so we can be the best we can be and reach our true spiritual selves. And then the crumbs of matzah, or probably the beautiful bars of chocolate, won't lead us back to Egypt, but instead, they're going to lead us to Sinai instead. Shabbat Shalom, Hag Sameach, and we're going to turn to Musa.